Hello everyone, it's Faith, and I'm here to bring you another bonus episode. This one is the first crew questions with Joshua Suhy, our fantastic sound designer. I have decided to release the entire episode because Josh had some great things to say about the craft of sound, and I think everybody should hear it. Plus, in true sound designer fashion, it's pretty to listen to. Can something be pretty to listen to? I don't know. It can now. If you would like to support Boom's amazing cast and crew, please head on over to patreon.com/boompodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you get exclusive and extended episodes, as well as some other cool goodies. Okay, without further ado, Joshua Suhy.
Hello everybody, my name is Joshua Suhy. I am the sound designer and mixer for Boom, a serial drama podcast. I was asked to answer a couple questions just to kind of give you guys a little bit more of an idea of what it is that I do. And here we go. So actually that is the first question. What exactly do I do as a sound engineer? And primarily my role is just to assist in bringing the script to life and ensure that all the aural elements are organic to the action in the episodes. And organic in that regard may not necessarily mean good per se. But it's whatever best supports the action is most appropriate for what's going on. The idea, again, is just to help support the overall vision. My goals are always to ensure that I get out of the way of the action and let the dialogue of the scenes carry the momentum of the episodes forward. I try not to design elements that'll take away from the action and ensure that the listener's attention never wavers from the focal point, which is the dialogue and the initial action. Question number 2. What or who inspired me to become a sound engineer? And it was largely influenced early on by films like Saving Private Ryan and Walter Murch's design work in Apocalypse Now. In part, I'm a huge history buff, but it was one of the first times I really noticed the impact of sound effects in the design of a film, being the initial opening scene to Saving Private Ryan when they're storming the beach. I remember lots of interviews and lots of veterans saying that it was the most realistic action that they had heard depicting the storming of Normandy. So to me, that was a huge part that the audio elements were able to really transport somebody back to something as momentous as that occasion. There was other films like watching the movie Goldeneye, which I actually just watched not too long ago again. And as the chase scene unfolds when they're driving through Russia, and James Bond is in I believe it's a Russian T-54 tank. At one point, he slams on the brakes with the cops that are chasing him, and when the cops rear end the tank, it was just this, super cheap sounding, almost like a small light bulb breaking, which to me totally pulled me out of the scene. So again, that's another great example of the importance of sound design and trying to stay out of the way and trying to make decisions based on the action in those scenes that best accompany the action, and something like that, again, totally pulled me out of that particular scene. So in the end, it really boiled down to just when I was in college, I was originally an audio production major and decided to change my major to audio post-production and film after taking sound design classes and really seeing the true power that a audio engineer can wield in the film landscape of being able to truly bring about the vision of the director to life. But really, it's more so about the power that I have to be able to bring scenes to life. And Boom is no exception, being that there is no visual image for me to follow. I have to come up and conjure all these images in my own head and find a way to bring those out. So a lot of that has to do with my film background, and to me it's just so much more fun and so much more of an interesting approach to the design process. Question number 3, was there anything in particular that attracted me to this project? And initially, I was just happy to have found a project to work on. Still, even to this day, I'm still fairly new to Nashville. I've only been here for about 2 years. So in my hunt, trying to find projects to work on, I was just immediately excited to find a project that I could flex my creative muscle and be a large part of that. I never worked on a podcast in this particular context before, so in a sense, I was kind of flying blind. But after seeing the quality of the work from all the voice acting, with face writing and directing, it was a shoo-in. It was a perfect fit. I had no issues, settling right into the role. And that's a big part of it, is just the high quality writing from Faith as well as the voice acting makes my job so much easier. And another important component to it was trying to change around my approach and style to not necessarily design too much, as I've mentioned before, trying to stay out of the way. And it wasn't designing things for the sake of just designing them, but really thinking critically about how important this piece of audio was to carry the story forward, and was it specifically necessary. How is working on an audio drama different from other projects that I've done? And honestly, it's not too terribly different. I tend to gravitate more towards film and audio post work. So essentially, working on the podcast is almost like working on a movie, but there's no moving image, which adds a really cool approach and element, and quite the extensive challenge, being that in a film, I have a visual element to work off of, and I design against that. Whereas with the podcast, it's pretty much based solely around the action that I hear. So it's trying to come up with the imagery in my head and find some way to get those sounds that I'm thinking about into the context of the show, as well as making sure that they make sense, it's organic to the action, and etc. I'm trying to stay out of the way, as I've mentioned before. So part of it is trying to make it feel real is a huge part of my end goal, and that's to ensure that I'm trying to teleport people into the episodes, if you will, and try to make it a true listening experience, in that you're completely invested in what's going on, it's believable, and because of everything that you're hearing, it becomes, if you will, real life. I'm trying to make the show, if you will, into a microcosm, in that everything around you melts away and you're solely focused on this new world that's in front of you, between the voice acting and everything else that's been done. But I try to bring all those elements together to create that homogeneous, holistic episode, and in the end, it's a complete and unique experience that you will not find anywhere else. So how long does it normally take me to sound design an episode? Typically, I would say somewhere between 10 to 15 hours. Part of that tends to be the audio quality. If I need to go in to clean anything up, it tends to take a little bit more time. But generally, the process for me works that once I receive the files, I load them into Pro Tools, into my template, and the template is a huge component for my workflow and being able to speed up the process, because beforehand I've taken care of all the technical side of things, all my routing, color coding, naming everything, all that kind of stuff. So it's that separation of the left brain versus right brain approach, because the technical side of things tend to pull you out of the creative mindset. So with a template, I can just throw everything in and just immediately stay creative and get into the design process. So once the audio is in my template, I organize it, separate all the characters' audio out for one another, and go through the process of cleaning things up if any of that is needed. I then go into designing the actual sound effects for the episode. Faith tends to send me over sound effects included in the episode, which I tend to either use as is, I'll augment them, or just completely replace, just depending upon the vibe and the flow of the episode itself. I may go in and do some music, if you will, type stuff. The drones and all that kind of stuff tend to be where I tend to fall on that if I feel the episode may need it. After that, it tends to be putting together the atmospheric sounds for if we're inside of a room, different room tones and things like that, to try and make it organic and feel as real as possible. And then the last part of designing is adding in the Foley sound effects, so clothes moving and that kind of stuff, which is difficult because, again, if I was to do this with a movie, normally I would act it out myself watching the movie and record the sounds of the clothing moving and things like that. But since I don't have a moving image to work with, I got to figure out what I think the characters would be doing if we were watching them, a fly on the wall kind of situation, what it is that they would be doing in those particular situations, and try to figure out, okay, how are the clothes moving? What kind of clothes are they wearing? Those types of decisions to try and make it, again, feel as real as humanly possible. What is my favorite piece of sound design that I've done for the show? There's been several. With the film background, I enjoy the approach of using motifs, in that I've taken parts from previous episodes from previous seasons and moved them into current seasons. The idea being that you as a listener, when you're hearing those things, it kind of helps to tie things in from the past. So I really like doing things like that. I use the original explosion and screams and the crying sounds and all that kind of stuff from the initial episodes, from episodes 1 and 2. A lot of the stuff that I had for Genevieve that Charity recorded for me separately, the sounds of like crying and things like that, I've mixed into other episodes just to add that extra ominous texture. So those types of effects are a lot of fun. I really like doing the drones, atonal drones and things like that to help also build the tension. Specifically, I think my favorite one that I built was in the season finale, episode 20. Once Porter is talking to Genevieve during the dream sequence, I need you to go. That particular drone, as I was making it, kind of harped back to the Tom Cruise version of War of the Worlds, where anytime you saw the creatures, they kind of made somewhat of a similar sound. So as I was listening to it, that kind of became the main point of inspiration for those particular sounds, which was a lot of fun to work on. And honestly, I think one of my favorite episodes that we did really didn't require any sound effects that I made, which was just Porter and Dr. Abbott in the office together talking. So it was literally just them talking in some basic room tone and Foley sound effects to kind of tie everything together. And I really liked it because of the simplicity of that and really honing in on the characters themselves and, these very deep philosophical conversations and, trying to drill down to the points of the matter. And that was certainly a situation where I'm like, I could add some things here in the background, but I felt that it would be too much and take away from what was going on. So I forego any sound effects for that particular episode to really drive home the power and the intimacy of that particular episode. Who is my favorite character? It's really hard to say because all the characters have been worked out so well and the casting has been so great that literally when I think or hear these characters now, I literally think of the voice actors and like, you are this person. But I think still, with that being said, Luke is probably my favorite just because how much of a downright bastard he is and just incredibly evil and conniving. And I absolutely love how well Brian takes that role. He really embodies it. And to me, almost like the Joker in The Dark Knight, just embodies the perfect villain. He has it all. There's just the attitude. There's a slight element of humor that he's got and just the sheer arrogance. And like, he knows that he's that intelligent. He knows what he's doing. Luke is so well put together as the bad guy that I think that's just absolutely perfect. If I could write an ending to the show, what would it be? I mean, obvious choice would be Luke versus Porter in a steel cage match for the championship belt. I mean, let's be serious here. It's hard to say for me because the dynamic between Porter and Luke is so strong that the chemistry there is amazing. And I would love to see more exploration with Porter trying to step up more to Luke because Luke's always been kind of crushing down on Porter, and Porter's been substantially more timid and submissive in a lot of the episodes. So seeing Porter coming back around, I'm not going to let you push me around anymore kind of situation would be really cool. But again, I mean, we could just do some atomic elbows off the top rope, which I feel should justify an ending of an episode if you'd like. The most challenging aspect to working on Boone is, as I've said many times, is just staying out of the way. And again, it's a new approach for me, and I've really enjoyed pushing myself in the elements of creativity to maintain that ideology in regards to this. And Faith is also really good about letting me know if things that I've done are not going to fly. She gives me a lot of creative freedom, which is great, but she also has no qualms about putting her foot down and saying, this is the way that I want this to be. So with that, it's trying to maintain my level of quality, keep fresh ideas, and keep things new. I certainly don't want to keep falling into reusing the same things over and over again, so that's always a challenge. In particular, since we've been doing this now coming on to 30 episodes, it's trying to maintain the high quality, keep people guessing of sorts with the sound design and making sure that I'm staying out of the way, supporting the action, but trying to continue to push the creativity and push my skills forward. This has certainly been an amazing learning opportunity, and I want to continue to grow my skills and to be challenged just by understanding the fact that I have nothing to go on essentially but the dialogue and what I'm able to create and conjure up in my own mind. It's our last question. I know everybody's sad out there, and I'm sorry. But the last question would be, what advice do I have for other drama podcasters when it comes to sound design? And largely, as an engineer, my job is to capture the essence of a performance. And that tends to happen when it comes to recording music or voice or whatever the case may be. But when projects like this, when it comes to being just audio only with a podcast, sound is everything. And what ends up happening for me in the film context and things like that, directors and creatives alike tend to separate the audio and the video or the visual elements from one another, and I tell them that's not the case. It's a symbiotic relationship in that the audio can exist by itself, as can the video, but when they work together is the most important thing. I have issues at times getting creatives and directors alike to understand when it comes to film or something with a visual component, trying to get them to understand that the audio and the video elements are just as important, that it's a symbiotic relationship, that without one, the other will die. And it is to say that the audio can exist by itself, if you will, as its own organism. The video can exist by itself as its own organism, but until you put those together and marry them is when you get a true cohesive organic project and a true product. So what I always just tell people in part is keep an open line of communication with whoever's doing sound design for you. If there's something that you're specifically looking for, try to be as clear and concise as to what that is. We can only go on so much. So if you tell me you want something specific, I can make that. I can't guess and I can't read your mind. So if you're looking for something specific, let us know. Also, it's your vision that we're trying to create. I'm not trying to necessarily create my podcast. Boom is not my podcast. What I'm trying to do, again, is support the action, make it tangible, and breathe in life to these characters to make them as real as I can. And as a director, as creative when it comes to a podcast, you're the one in charge. I need to know what it is you want. Again, those open lines of communication and being organized. But don't be afraid to say yes to things, but also don't be afraid to say no. And as a engineer and a sound designer myself, I like having, true creative freedom. But at the same time, I like having, if you will, walls on either end. On inside eye is where I'm able to work. That is to say, being told do whatever you want for me is not a good thing, because I could spend hours upon hours just digging through different sample libraries trying to find something. But just give us as much information as you possibly can of what it is that you're looking for, and then I can use those components, pull in my own creative mindset, and then be able to make something that's completely unique for you and for the project. So work with us and we'll work with you, I suppose you could say. But that wraps it up for me. Thank you very much for checking out our show. It has been a labor of love. We would love any type of support that you'd be able to give to us, and we hope to see you around for eventual seasons. So again, this is Joshua Suhy, sound designer and mixer and engineer for Boom, a serial drama podcast. And again, thank you for checking us out.
If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, bonus or otherwise, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For more info on the show, where to find us on social media, and a link to our Teespring store, where you can find t-shirts, stickers, and other cool stuff, please visit boom.observerpictures.com. Thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. And be sure to tell a friend about the show. We'll be back next week with another interview. Until next time.